You know that feeling when you realize you've made a terrible mistake, but you can't take it back? That's what hit me the second I spoke Spanish into my phone during a shift at Miami's most exclusive restaurant. Because the man who heard me, the one whose table I was serving, wasn't just any customer. He was Sean Rivas. He looked up slowly, his dark eyes locking onto mine with an intensity that made my breath catch. He leaned toward his security detail and said just 3 words, "Stop her." Tonight. Apparently, I just said something I wasn't supposed to know. Right before we dive into the story, I need you to do 2 quick things. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. And if you're already feeling the pull, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Because tomorrow's story, it's intense, and I want you there the moment it drops. Now, let's get into it. The Miami humidity hit me like a wet towel as I burst through the doors of the Mariner exactly 14 minutes late for my shift. My uniform blouse was already sticking to my back, my carefully pinned hair coming loose in the coastal wind, and my mind was still racing with worry about Eli, my 16-year-old brother who I'd left alone in our apartment again because I couldn't afford to lose this job. Christy, thank God. Clara, the floor manager, grabbed my elbow before I'd even reached the staff room, her French manicure digging into my skin. Her usual composed expression had cracked into something close to panic. "You're on the private terrace tonight. Table 12. What? But that's your section." "Doesn't matter." She pulled me aside, away from the other servers prepping their stations. Her voice dropped to barely above a whisper. "Listen to me very carefully. These men are important. Very important. You serve, you smile, you don't ask questions, and you absolutely do not draw attention to yourself." "Understood." The edge in her voice made my stomach clench. I've been working at the Mariner for 4 months now, long enough to know that important was code for dangerous. Long enough to recognize which tables got the vintage wine poured from bottles without price tags, which diners made the kitchen staff nervous, which names were never spoken above a whisper. "Who are they?" I asked, tying my black apron with fingers that trembled slightly. Clara's eyes darted toward the terrace entrance, where palm shadows danced against frosted glass. "Business associates. Miami people. Just be invisible, Christy. Like you're good at." Invisible. That word had become my survival strategy since Mom and Dad died 8 months ago in that still unexplained accident in Veracruz. Since I become a 24-year-old single guardian to a teenage boy in a city that chewed up people like us and spit out the bones. Invisible meant safe. Invisible meant employed. Invisible meant Eli and I could keep our tiny Hialeah apartment, and maybe, just maybe, I could keep my promise to Mom that I'd keep him out of trouble. I smoothed my black skirt, tucked the loose strands of hair behind my ears, and grabbed my order pad. "I've got this." Clara squeezed my shoulder once, almost apologetically, then released me. I moved through the main dining room with practiced efficiency, past tables of couples celebrating anniversaries and business deals sealed over truffle risotto. The Mariner glowed like a jewel box. Warm Edison bulbs reflected off polished copper. White tablecloth crisp as new money. Floor-to-ceiling windows framing the marina, where yachts bobbed gently in slips that cost more than most people's mortgages. Old Miami wealth. The kind that knew better than a flash. The kind that wore power like cologne. Expensive, subtle, unmistakable. The private terrace was accessed through a separate hallway lined with black and white photographs of the Miami waterfront from the 1950s. My heels clicked against marble as I approached the frosted glass door. I could see silhouettes through it, 6 figures around a table, smoke from cigars or cigarettes curling toward the open sky. I knocked once, soft, professional, and entered. The terrace was smaller than the main dining room, more intimate, with potted palms creating shadows that the string lights overhead couldn't quite penetrate. The table was round, set for 6, already occupied by men in suits that looked Italian-made and cost more than my monthly rent. But it was the man at the head of the table, though how a round table had a head, I couldn't explain, who made me forget my training. Sean Rivas. I'd never seen him in person before, but I knew his face from the occasional society page photo, from the whispers in the kitchen, from the way people's voices changed when they mentioned his name. Younger than I expected, mid-30s at most, with dark hair that fell just slightly too long, a sharp jawline shadowed with deliberate stubble, and ink creeping up from his collar. Some kind of design I couldn't make out from where I stood. His suit was charcoal gray, perfectly tailored to shoulders that suggested he didn't just sign checks. He could back them up physically if needed. But it was his eyes that froze me mid-step, dark, intelligent, and cold as the marble floors I just crossed. He didn't look up immediately. None of them did. They were mid-conversation, a mix of English and Spanish, something about shipment schedules and container numbers. I caught more than I should have, understood references I probably wasn't supposed to recognize. I dropped my gaze immediately, heat creeping up my neck. "Good evening, gentlemen." My voice came out steady. "Thank God. I'm Christy, and I'll be taking care of you tonight. May I start you with drinks?" I moved around the table, taking orders with mechanical precision. "Scotch neat, bourbon rocks, a vodka martini, extra dry." I kept my eyes on my notepad, my posture deferential, my presence as minimal as possible. When I reached Sean Rivas last, he still hadn't looked at me. "And for you, sir." A pause, long enough that I felt it in my chest. Then his eyes lifted, and the full weight of his attention hit me like a physical force. "You're new," he said. Not a question. A statement delivered in a voice that was low and smooth, with the faintest trace of a Cuban accent underneath the Miami polish. "For months, sir." My pen hovered over paper that suddenly felt miles away. The corner of his mouth curved. Not quite a smile. "Anejo tequila." "Neat." I nodded and turned to leave, my heart beating too fast for a simple drink order, when my phone vibrated in my apron pocket. I never, ever, took my phone out during a shift. But Eli's school had called twice today about an incident, and he'd promised to text me after he got home. With everything that had been happening lately, the shadows I'd started noticing outside our apartment, the calls from numbers I didn't recognize, the growing sense that someone was watching us, I couldn't ignore it. I slipped the phone out just enough to see the screen. Eli, someone's following me. I'm scared. My blood went cold. I glanced at the table. They were deep in conversation, heads bent over what looked like architectural plans spread across the white tablecloth. I took 2 quiet steps toward the terrace edge, toward the railing that overlooked the dark marina, and answered. "Tranquilo, corazon," I whispered, the Spanish slipping out automatically the way it always did when I was scared or tired or talking to Eli. "Cerrate dentro y no abras la puerta." "You voy. Calm down, sweetheart. Lock yourself in and don't open the door." "I'm coming." The silence behind me was so complete that I heard the distant sound of a boat horn from the marina. I turned slowly. Every single man at the table had stopped talking. Every pair of eyes was on me. But Sean Rivas had gone completely still, his glass halfway to his lips, his expression transformed from casual interest to something sharp and dangerous. His head tilted slightly, like a predator processing unexpected information. Then he set his glass down with deliberate care and murmured something to the man beside him, one of the security types who'd been standing against the wall like human furniture. The man's eyes found me, and he nodded once. Sean's gaze never left my face as he spoke, voice carrying across the sudden silence. Her, the one on the phone. My hands went numb. The phone nearly slipped from my grip. I apologize for the interruption, I stammered, shoving the phone back into my pocket. Professional smile, even though my lips felt frozen. I'll get those drinks right away. I fled the terrace on legs that barely held me, my mind screaming that something had just gone terribly, terribly wrong. In the service station, I braced my hands against the counter and tried to breathe. What I just done? Spoken Spanish in front of Miami's most dangerous man? Used a word, corazon, that apparently meant something to him? Clara appeared beside me, her face white. What happened out there? I don't know. My voice shook. My brother called, and I answered in Spanish. I nodded miserably. She closed her eyes like she was praying. Christy, do you have any idea who that man is? Sean Rivas. I know. No. Clara grabbed my shoulders, forcing me to look at her. You know his name. You don't know what he is. Those men control half the port traffic in Miami. The legal half and the other half. And you just... She broke off, shaking her head. Finish the shift. Keep your head down. Maybe he'll forget about it. But when I returned to the terrace with the tray of drinks, I knew he wouldn't forget. Because Sean Rivas was watching me with an expression I couldn't read. Something between curiosity and calculation, interest and suspicion. And when I placed his tequila in front of him, our eyes met for just a second. Long enough for me to see recognition flicker across his face. Not recognition of me. Recognition of something I'd said. Something that meant more than a sister calming her scare brother. The rest of the shift passed in agonizing slow motion. I served courses, refilled glasses, cleared plates, all while feeling his eyes track my movements like a sniper's scope. Once, when I leaned between two guests to place a dish, I caught the scent of his cologne, something woody and expensive that somehow smelled like power and threat combined. The men shifted between English and Spanish throughout the meal, and I understood every word. Shipping schedules, container numbers, names of people and places that made the hair on my arms stand up. I kept my face carefully blank, my expression pleasantly empty. But I knew Sean noticed. I could feel his attention like heat on my skin every time I entered the terrace. It was nearly midnight when they finally stood to leave. I presented the check in a leather folder. Though I suspected men like these never actually paid for meals at places they probably owned pieces of. Sean signed without looking at the total, then held out the receipt to me. His fingers brushed mine as I took it, deliberate and brief. Gracias, Christy, he said, my name rolling off his tongue in perfect Spanish with that Veracruz lilt I hadn't heard since my parents died. I nodded, not trusting my voice, and stepped back as they gathered their things and filed toward the exit. Sean was last. At the door, he paused and looked back at me, his expression unreadable in the shifting shadows of the palm fronds. Buenas noches, he said quietly, and then he was gone. I exhaled shakily and began clearing the table with trembling hands. The tip envelope felt thick. I didn't want to look, didn't want to know how much guilt money he'd left. But when I finally opened it in the service station, I found $500 in crisp bills. More than I made in a week. Attached to it was a business card. Heavy stock, embossed letters. Sean Rivas. Rivas Maritime Solutions. On the back, written in bold handwriting, my office. Tomorrow, 2 p.m. Not a request. A summons. An hour later, I'd finished my closing duties and changed out of my uniform into the jeans and t-shirt I'd worn to work. The restaurant had emptied except for the kitchen crew finishing cleanup. I grabbed my purse, desperate to get home to Eli, to make sure he was okay, to figure out what the hell I'd stumbled into. Christy, Clara's voice stopped me at the staff exit. She looked pale, worried. Mr. Rivas wants to see you before you leave. The floor seemed to tilt beneath my feet. What? He's in the manager's office. Now. But he left an hour ago. Apparently he came back. Her expression was sympathetic but firm. You can't say no. On numb legs, I followed her through the kitchen, past the line cooks who suddenly found their cleaning tasks fascinating, to the small office tucked behind the wine storage. Clara knocked once, then gestured for me to enter alone. The office was cramped, made smaller by the man standing in it. Sean had removed his jacket. His shirt sleeves were rolled to his elbows, revealing more of the tattoos that wound up his forearms. Intricate designs that looked like they told a story I couldn't read. He wasn't alone. A large man in a black suit stood by the door, hands clasped, expression blank. Security. Sit, Sean said, gesturing to the chair in front of the desk that wasn't his, but that he'd clearly commandeered. I sat, spine rigid, hands clasped in my lap to hide their shaking. He studied me for a long moment, and I forced myself to meet his eyes despite every instinct screaming to look away. You speak Spanish like a native, he said finally. Veracruz accent. Coastal. It wasn't a question, but I answered anyway. I grew up there. My mother was Mexican. She died 8 months ago. The words came out flat, defensive. Car accident. Both my parents. Something flickered across his face, too quick to read. And yet your English is almost no accent. My father was American. I grew up bilingual. He nodded slowly, like he was filing away puzzle pieces. The call you received tonight. Your brother. How did he? But of course he knew. Men like Sean Rivas didn't operate on partial information. He's 16. He got scared. Someone was following him. I met his gaze directly, some reckless part of me refusing to show weakness. I'm all he has. And the word you used. Corazon. Your father taught you that. The question landed like a blade between my ribs. My father used to call me that. Used to call Eli that. A term of endearment that meant sweetheart, darling. But the way Sean said it, the weight he gave it, suggested it meant something else entirely. It's just what we say in my family, I managed. Sean leaned back against the desk, arms crossed, expression unreadable. Your family. Tell me about your father. Why? The word escaped before I could stop it. Why does it matter? Because I need to know, he said simply, if you're who I think you are. Fear spiked through me, cold and sharp. I don't know what you. Your father's name. His full name. I hesitated, every instinct screaming that this was dangerous, that giving him information was like handing him a weapon. But his eyes held mine, patient and implacable, and I knew he'd get the answer one way or another. Miguel Kiesler. I whispered. Miguel Antonio Kiesler. The name hung in the air between us. Sean's expression didn't change, but something in his posture shifted, a tension settling across his shoulders like he'd just confirmed a suspicion he'd hoped was wrong. He reached into his jacket and pulled out his phone, swiped a few times, then turned the screen toward me. It was a photograph, old and slightly faded. 2 men standing on a dock, sun-bright and smiling, arms around each other's shoulders. One was younger, but unmistakably Sean. Fewer tattoos, longer hair, easier smile. The other was my father, maybe 15 years younger than I remembered him, wearing a shirt embroidered with a raven. My heart stopped. This was taken at the port of Veracruz, Sean said quietly. 18 years ago. Your father worked for my family then. Did he ever tell you that? I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. My father, quiet, careful Miguel who'd worked maintenance at the Miami port, who'd taught Eli and me Spanish through games and word puzzles, who'd always seemed to be looking over his shoulder, had worked for the Rivas family? For the Mafia? I don't understand. I managed. Neither do I. Yet, Sean took the phone back, his expression hard. Because 15 years ago, Your father disappeared after stealing something from us. Information that nearly got me killed. The room spun. That's not possible. My father wasn't. Wasn't what? A criminal? A traitor? Sean's voice was soft, dangerous. Tell me, Christy, what did your parents tell you about why you left Mexico? About why you moved to Miami when you were 9 years old? I opened my mouth, closed it, because the answer, Dad got a better job, suddenly sounded absurd. When I heard you speak tonight, Sean continued, using that word in that accent, I thought I was hearing a ghost. Because Corazon was your father's code name in our operation. The name he used when he ran messages between my family and our partners in Colombia. No, this wasn't real. I think you're mistaken, I said, voice shaking. My father worked in shipping logistics. Legal shipping. Your father, Sean cut in, worked for me. Until he betrayed me. And now his daughter shows up in my city, working in my restaurant, speaking his words. He leaned forward, and I saw it then. The real danger beneath the expensive suit and controlled demeanor. So, I need you to tell me, Christy Kiesler, are you here by accident? But did someone send you? Transition to backstory. This is where the narrative would pull back to explore Christy's fragmented memories of her childhood in Mexico, her father's mysterious death, and the pieces of her past she never understood, now suddenly taking on sinister new meaning. The reader will begin to see how Christy's entire life has been shaped by secrets she didn't know existed. The silence in the cramped office pressed against my eardrums like water pressure. Sean's question, are you here by accident? Or did someone send you? Hung in the air between us, unanswered because I didn't know how to answer it. Nobody sent me. I finally managed, my voice steadier than I felt. I didn't even know who you were until tonight, but you knew to apply here, to the mariner. His eyes never left my face, cataloging every micro-expression. Out of all the restaurants in Miami, I needed a job. You were hiring. I lifted my chin, refusing to shrink. That's it. He studied me for another long moment, then gestured to the chair. Sit. It wasn't a request. I sank into the worn leather, acutely aware of the security guard blocking the door, of how small this room suddenly felt. Sean moved around the desk with predatory grace, perching on its edge directly in front of me, close enough that I could see the tiny scar above his left eyebrow, the shadow of exhaustion beneath his eyes. Tell me exactly how your father taught you Spanish, he said, his voice dropping lower. The phrases he used, the way he pronounced certain words. I don't understand why. Humor me. There was steel beneath the politeness. I swallow hard. He taught us through games, word puzzles. He'd say a phrase in Spanish, and Eli and I had to respond correctly, or we'd lose points. The memory felt surreal now, tainted. He was particular about pronunciation, about getting the coastal accent right, not the Mexico City version. What phrases? Tranquilo, corazon, no te preocupes, serate dentro. I recited them mechanically, watching his expression darken with each one. He said they were just common expressions. They were codes, Sean said quietly. Signals we used in smuggling operations 20 years ago. Tranquilo, corazon meant shipment delayed. Serate dentro meant abort the pickup. My stomach dropped. That's not possible. You just spoke them perfectly. Rhythm, inflection, everything. He leaned forward, and I caught that scent again. Expensive cologne and danger. Your father didn't teach you Spanish, Christy. He taught you how to operate in our world. The question is why. I shook my head, denial rising like bile. My father was a good man. Your father, Sean interrupted, voice sharp as a blade, put a bullet in my chest 15 years ago during a raid that killed 3 of my men. So forgive me if I don't share your assessment of his character. The room tilted. I gripped the armrest to keep from falling. He's dead now, Sean continued, his tone softening just slightly. Both your parents are. Convenient timing, don't you think? Right before you show up here. It was a car accident in Veracruz, where your father had enemies. His eyes bored into mine, where my family still has people who remember what he did. The implication hit me like a slap. You think someone killed them? I think, Sean said carefully, that your father's past finally caught up with him. And now I need to know if it's about to catch up with you too. He stood abruptly, pulling a card from his wallet and setting it on the desk between us. The same embossed card from the tip envelope. Go home. Check on your brother. But tomorrow at 2, you come to my office. His gaze held mine. And Christy, don't run. I'll know if you try. The security guard opened the door. My dismissal. I grabbed my purse with numb fingers and fled, my heels clicking too loud against the marble floors of the empty restaurant. Claire was gone. Everyone was gone. Just the night cleaning crew and the echo of my ragged breathing. Outside, the Miami night had cooled to something almost bearable. I fumbled for my phone, hands shaking as I texted Eli. On my way. Don't open the door for anyone. The parking lot was mostly empty, my beat-up Honda Civic looking absurdly out of place among the luxury cars still scattered across the asphalt. I was halfway to it when I noticed the black SUV idling near the exit, windows tinted so dark I couldn't see inside. My steps faltered. The SUV's engine was running, exhaust ghosting in the humid air. Someone was watching, waiting. I forced myself to keep walking, to unlock my car with fingers that barely cooperated, to start the engine and pull out of the lot like everything was normal. Like I couldn't feel eyes tracking my every movement. The SUV followed. Not close. 2 car lengths back, professional and obvious. They wanted me to know they were there. I took surface streets toward Hialeah, watching the headlights trail me through every turn, every light. My mind raced with Sean's words. Don't run. I'll know if you try. Was this protection or surveillance? Threat or insurance? When I finally pulled up to my apartment complex, a faded pink building with security bars and loud neighbors. The SUV parked across the street beneath a broken streetlight. Just sitting there, watching. I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel, staring at that dark vehicle. He doesn't trust me, I thought. Or maybe he knew something I didn't. Something about why my parents really died. Something about the secrets they'd hidden in word games and careful lies. Something I was about to inherit whether I wanted to or not. I grabbed my purse and ran for my apartment, the weight of those watching eyes following me all the way inside. I didn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my father's face in that photograph. Younger, smiling, arm around Sean Rivas like they were brothers. By dawn, I'd given up and sat at our tiny kitchen table, watching the black SUV through the window until it finally pulled away at 6 a.m. Eli emerged from his room an hour later, headphones around his neck, eyes still heavy with sleep. You okay? You look like hell. Thanks, I muttered, pushing a cup of coffee toward him. We need to talk about last night. Who was following you? He shrugged, too casual. I don't know. Some guy. Probably nothing. Eli. I'm fine, Christy. Stop worrying. He grabbed his backpack, kissed my cheek, and was gone before I could press further. I stared at the door he'd closed, anxiety coiling tighter in my chest. Everything felt wrong, off balance, like the ground beneath us had shifted, and I was only now noticing the cracks. My phone buzzed. A text from Clara. Need you at the restaurant. 10 a.m. Don't be late. Clara's office was cramped and smelled like espresso and stress. She sat behind her desk, fingers drumming nervously against a manila folder. Sit down, Christy. I sat, stomach already sinking. You've been with us 4 months now, she began, not meeting my eyes. Your performance has been adequate, so we're offering you a new position. A promotion? The word came out flat, disbelieving. Private catering. Select clientele. She finally looked up, and I saw something like pity in her expression. Your first assignment starts today. She slid the folder across the desk. I opened it. Inside was a single sheet with an address, Port of Miami, Pier 7, and a time, 2 p.m. Below it, in bold letters, client, Sean Rivas. My hands went cold. I don't understand. Mr. Rivas has specifically requested you for his upcoming business engagements. He needs someone who speaks fluent Spanish for meetings with international partners. Clara's voice was carefully neutral. The position comes with a significant pay increase, triple your current rate. And if I say no, her silence was answer enough. I closed the folder, my jaw tight. This isn't a promotion, Clara. This is a transfer of ownership. It's an opportunity, she corrected, but her eyes said she didn't believe it either. One you'd be smart to take. Pier 7 smelled like salt and diesel fuel. The Miami sun beating down on concrete and metal with relentless intensity. Shipping containers stacked like building blocks, cranes groaning overhead, workers shouting in Spanish and English and Creole. I found Sean exactly where Clara's instructions said he'd be, standing near a freighter called La Serena, watching his men load unmarked wooden crates onto the deck. He wore dark jeans and a white linen shirt rolled to his elbows, aviator sunglasses hiding his eyes, looking more like a dangerous tourist than a crime boss. He saw me approaching and dismissed the man he'd been talking to with a slight gesture. Christy. Right on time. He removed his sunglasses, and those dark eyes pinned me in place. Walk with me. It wasn't a request. We moved along the pier, past workers who gave Sean a wide berth, their gazes sliding away respectfully, or fearfully. I couldn't tell the difference. Starting next week, Sean said, his tone conversational, I have meetings scheduled with potential investors for Bogota. They prefer to conduct business in Spanish. You'll attend as my translator. I'm a waitress, not a... You're whatever I need you to be. He stopped walking, turning to face me fully. This isn't a request, Christy. It's a chance to pay off a debt you didn't know you owed. The phrase hit me like a physical blow. A debt. My father used to say that exact phrase, his voice heavy with something I'd been too young to understand. We have debts, Mija. Debts that must be paid. What debt? I demanded, anger cutting through fear. I didn't do anything. Your father stole from my family. Information that cost lives, cost money, cost trust. Sean's expression was granite. Those debts don't disappear just because he's dead. They transfer. That's not how the law works. I'm not talking about the law. He stepped closer, and I smelled ocean salt and expensive cologne. I'm talking about survival. Yours and your brother's. The implied threat hung in the humid air. 3 meetings, he continued. Maybe 4. You translate. You keep your mouth shut about what you hear, and when it's done, we're even. Your father's sins, forgiven. And if I refuse? His smile didn't reach his eyes. Then I start asking questions about how Miguel, Kiesler's children, ended up in Miami. About who might be interested in that information. About whether Eli is old enough to understand what his father really was. My breath caught. Leave my brother out of this. Then accept the job. I wanted to scream, to run, to fight. But I saw no way out that didn't end with Eli in danger. Fine, I whispered. Good. Sean pulled an envelope from his pocket and handed it to me. Your advance. First week's payment. The envelope was thick, heavy. I didn't open it. Go home, Christy. I'll send details about the first meeting. He replaced his sunglasses, dismissing me. And lose the tail tonight. My men will be watching, but they'll be less obvious about it. He walked away, leaving me standing on the pier with an envelope full of blood money and the sinking realization that I'd just sold myself to the man who might have killed my father. When I got home that evening, Eli was in the living room, staring at something on the floor. "What's wrong?" He pointed to the envelope lying just inside our door. It was there when I got home. I picked it up with trembling hands, already knowing what I'd find. Inside was cash, more than I'd seen in months. Enough to cover rent, utilities, Eli's school fees. Enough to stop worrying for a little while. Enough to make me complicit. I looked at my brother's confused face and forced a smile. "It's okay. It's just a work bonus." But as I hid the money in my dresser drawer, I couldn't shake my father's voice echoing in my memory. "Debts must be paid, Mija. Always." I was paying his now. The only question was what it would cost me in the end. The files arrived by courier 3 days later. 2 boxes of ledgers, contracts, and correspondence, all in Spanish. My job was to organize them chronologically and flag anything requiring translation for Sean's upcoming meetings. I spread them across our cramped living room floor while Eli was at school, working methodically through invoices and shipping manifests that revealed nothing obviously criminal. Just business. Legitimate-looking business that probably hid a dozen illegal operations beneath the surface. I was halfway through the second box when I found it. A photograph tucked inside a leather-bound ledger from 1998, the edges worn soft with age. My breath stopped. 2 men stood on a sun-bleached dock, arms slung around each other's shoulders like brothers. One was Sean, younger by at least 15 years, his face unlined and his smile genuine. The other was unmistakably my father, Miguel Kiesler, maybe 30 years old, hair still dark, eyes crinkled with laughter. But it was their wrists that made my heart pound. Both men wore identical cufflinks, silver, engraved with a raven in flight, wings spread wide. I'd seen that symbol before. Somewhere in the fragments of childhood memory, I tried so hard to forget. My hands shook as I pulled out my phone and called the storage facility where we'd boxed up my parents' belongings after the funeral. "I need access unit 247. Can I come by this afternoon?" The storage unit smelled like dust and loss. I stood in the doorway, staring at the boxes that contained everything my parents had owned, everything they'd left behind when they died on a dark road in Mexico with no witnesses and no explanation. I found what I was looking for in the third box, a small tin that had once held my father's cufflinks and tie clips. Most were cheap, practical, but at the bottom, wrapped in a scrap of velvet, was a single silver cufflink. A raven, wings spread, identical to the ones in the photograph. I sat on the concrete floor, turning it over in my palm, and felt my entire childhood shift into a different focus. The late-night phone calls my father took in whispered Spanish. The way we moved apartments every few years, always paying cash. The work trips that kept him away for weeks at a time. The word games that were actually code phrases. My father hadn't been running from the Rivas family. He'd been part of it. I pocketed the cufflink and locked the unit, my mind racing. What else had they lied about? What else didn't I know? I was still trying to process everything when I got home that evening to find Sean Rivas sitting on my couch. I froze in the doorway, keys dangling from my hand. "How did you?" "Your locks are a joke," he said calmly, though his eyes were anything but calm. They tracked to the cufflink I'd unconsciously been clutching in my pocket. "And you're not as subtle as you think." My heart hammered. "I was just organizing files like you asked. And then you went to your father's storage unit." He stood, moving toward me with that predatory grace that made the small apartment feel even smaller. "Next time you want to look into my business, Christy, you knock first. This isn't your business. It's my father's. They're the same thing." He stopped close enough that I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. Or they were, before he betrayed us. I pulled the cufflink from my pocket and held it up. Then explain this. Explain why he kept it. Why he wore the raven symbol, just like you. Something shifted in Sean's expression, a crack in the controlled facade. He took the cufflink from my palm, his fingers brushing mine, and I saw his jaw tighten. He was my father's most trusted courier, Sean said quietly, his voice stripped of its usual edge. Miguel and I ran operations together for 3 years. He taught me half of what I know about the shipping routes, about reading people, about... He broke off, shaking his head. We were close, like brothers. Then what happened? He stole intelligence about a major deal, sold it to our competitors in Cali. 3 of my men died in the ambush that followed. Sean's eyes met mine, and I saw something raw beneath the anger. I trusted him, and he destroyed that trust for money. That doesn't make sense, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. My father wasn't. He wouldn't. Wouldn't he? Sean handed the cufflink back, his touch lingering a moment too long. You didn't really know him, Christy. You knew the version he wanted you to see. The words cut deeper than any threat. Why are you really here? I asked. To warn me? To threaten me? He studied me for a long moment, and something in his expression softened, just slightly, like a door opening a crack. To make sure you're not making the same mistakes he did. His voice dropped lower, almost gentle. Whatever you're looking for in those files, in those storage boxes, it won't change what happened. It won't bring them back. But it might tell me the truth. The truth, Sean said, moving toward the door, is that your father loved you enough to keep you out of this world. Don't waste that gift by diving back into it. He paused at the threshold, looking back at me one last time. The first meeting is Friday, 8 p.m. I'll send a car. His eyes held mine. And Christy, stop looking for ghosts. They have a way of looking back. Then he was gone, leaving me alone with a cufflink, a photograph, and the growing certainty that everything I thought I knew about my family was a carefully constructed lie. I looked down at the raven in my palm, its silver wings catching the dim apartment light. My father had worn this symbol, had stood beside Sean Rivas as a brother, and then he betrayed him. The question that kept me awake that night wasn't why. It was what else had he been hiding, and whether those secrets had finally gotten him killed. The car Sean sent was a Mercedes S-Class with leather seats that probably cost more than my annual salary. I sat in the back, wearing a black dress that had appeared in a garment bag outside my door that morning. Designer, perfectly fitted, with a note in bold handwriting. Wear this. S. I hated how well it fit. Hated more that I put it on without question. Where are we going? I asked the driver. The Seta, he replied. South Beach's most exclusive hotel, where rooms started at $1,000 a night, and privacy was the ultimate luxury. Sean was waiting in the lobby, devastating in a tailored navy suit, his dark hair swept back, the tattoos on his neck just visible above his collar. He looked me over once, clinical, assessing, then nodded. This way. He led me through marble hallways to a private dining room overlooking the ocean. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the darkening Atlantic, and a table was set for 6 with crystal and white orchids. 3 men were already seated. Colombian, I could tell immediately, not from their appearance, but from the Paisa accent when they greeted Sean. Medellin, specifically, dangerous territory. Gentlemen, Sean said smoothly in Spanish, this is Christy, my associate. She'll be facilitating our discussion tonight. I took my seat beside Sean, spine straight, expression neutral, professional, invisible. Except I wasn't invisible. I could feel their eyes on me, calculating, curious, vaguely predatory. The oldest one, silver-haired and expensively dressed, smiled. Your Spanish is excellent, señorita. Where did you learn? Veracruz, I replied carefully. I grew up there. Something flickered in his expression. Recognition? Interest? I couldn't tell. Dinner proceeded with excruciating politeness. They discussed shipping routes and container fees, customs officials and port schedules. All perfectly legal on the surface, coded underneath. I translated when needed, kept my eyes down when I wasn't needed, and tried to ignore the way Sean's presence beside me made the air feel electric. Then, during the main course, the youngest Colombian, maybe 30, with cold eyes and restless hands, leaned toward his colleague and whispered in rapid slang. Esta noche, en Los Muelles, dos de la mañana. Tonight, at the docks, 2 in the morning. My blood went cold. It wasn't part of the conversation. It was separate, secret, and the way he said it, quick, furtive, told me it wasn't meant for Sean's ears. I kept my expression blank, but my mind raced. An ambush. A setup? The phrase my father had taught me echoed in my head. Cirate dentro. Aboard the pickup. I reached for the wine bottle with steady hands, stood, and moved to Sean's side. More wine, Mr. Rivas? He glanced up, surprised. I hadn't served anyone all night, but nodded. As I poured, I leaned in just slightly and murmured in English, barely above a breath, "Don't send your men out tonight." His hand stilled on his glass. Our eyes met for a fraction of a second. Then I stepped back, set the bottle down, and returned to my seat as if nothing had happened. The rest of dinner passed in a blur. Sean's demeanor didn't change. He laughed at jokes, negotiated terms, shook hands warmly when the Colombians finally left. But I felt the tension radiating off him like heat. The moment the door closed behind them, he turned to me. "What did you hear?" I told him, word for word. His expression went dark. He pulled out his phone, typed a rapid message, then grabbed my wrist, not hard but firm. "Come with me. Now." We took the service elevator to the parking garage. Sean made 2 calls in clipped Spanish, his jaw tight, his free hand never leaving the small of my back. Protective or possessive, I couldn't tell. "Get in." He opened the passenger door of a black Range Rover, and I slid in without argument. He drove fast, weaving through South Beach traffic toward the port. Rain had started falling, fat drops splattering the windshield, and Miami's neon lights blurred into streaks of color. "Where are we going?" "To make sure my men don't walk into a fucking ambush." His knuckles were white on the steering wheel. "If you're wrong." "I'm not." He glanced at me, something sharp and searching in his expression, then focused back on the road. We arrived at Pier 12 just after midnight. The docks were dark, rain hammering down now, and Sean's men were already there. 4 of them, armed, waiting beside 2 black SUVs. Sean got out, and I followed despite the rain soaking through my expensive dress within seconds. "Pull everyone back," Sean ordered. "Now, move the shipment to the alternate location." His head of security, a man I recognized from the restaurant, frowned. "Boss, the Colombians are expecting. It's a setup. Move. Now." They scattered, efficient and silent. Sean turned to me, rain streaming down his face, his white shirt plastered to his chest. "If you just saved my operation based on a hunch." Gunfire shattered the night. Muzzle flashes lit up the far end of the pier, bullets ricocheting off metal containers. Sean grabbed me, hauling me behind an SUV as his men returned fire, the sound deafening. It lasted maybe 30 seconds. Then sirens wailed in the distance, and the shooters fled, dark figures disappearing into the maze of containers. Silence fell, broken only by rain and my ragged breathing. Sean's hands were on my shoulders, his eyes wild as he scanned me for injuries. "Are you hit?" I shook my head, unable to speak. His men were already moving, securing the area, checking for casualties. One of them called out, "We're clear, boss." They ran when we didn't show at the drop point. Sean exhaled, his grip on me loosening but not releasing. Then he looked down at me, really looked, and something shifted in his expression. The rain had washed blood from a cut on his temple, streaking down his jaw, and his eyes held a mixture of disbelief and something raw. "You saved my life tonight," he said quietly, his voice nearly lost in the rain. His thumb brushed my shoulder, almost unconscious. "You had no reason to warn me. You could have let them kill me. Walked away clean." "I'm not a killer," I whispered. "No." His eyes searched mine, and I saw the question forming behind them. The same question that had haunted me since that first night. "But I still don't know who you are." "I'm just." "Don't." His hand moved to my face, tilting my chin up. Water dripped from his hair onto my cheeks. "Don't tell me you're just a waitress. Don't tell me this is just a job." You heard that phrase in coded slang and knew exactly what it meant. My breath caught. "My father taught you more than Spanish." His voice was rough, edged with something between anger and awe. "He taught you how to survive in my world." The question is why. I had no answer, only the truth burning in my chest, that I was terrified and exhilarated and trapped in the orbit of a man who was both my captor and, somehow, the only person who made me feel alive. Sean's thumb traced my jaw, and for one impossible moment, I thought he might kiss me. Instead, he stepped back, breaking the contact, his expression shuddering. "Get in the car. I'm taking you home." But as we drove through rain-soaked streets in charged silence, I knew something fundamental had changed between us. He'd stopped seeing me as his enemy's daughter, and I'd stopped seeing him as just a monster. What we were becoming was far more dangerous than either. The summons came the next morning, a text with an address in Coral Gables and a time. 11 a.m. Come alone. No please. No explanation. Just the expectation of obedience. I almost didn't go. Almost called his bluff. Stayed home with Eli. Pretended I could walk away from this. But the memory of gunfire and Sean's hands on my shoulders, the look in his eyes when he said, "I still don't know who you are," it pulled me forward like gravity. The mansion sat behind high walls and royal palms, all white stone and floor-to-ceiling glass overlooking Biscayne Bay. A guard waved me through the gate, and I parked my pathetic Honda next to a collection of vehicles worth more than my entire neighborhood. Sean met me at the door himself, barefoot in dark jeans and a white linen shirt unbuttoned at the collar. He looked tired, shadows under his eyes, tension in his jaw, but his gaze was sharp as ever. "This way." He led me through rooms designed by someone with unlimited money and no need for warmth. Marble floors, modern art, everything cold and beautiful. We ended in his study, a room that smelled like leather and cigar smoke, with French doors open to the ocean breeze. "Sit," he said, gesturing to a chair across from his desk. I remained standing. "Why am I here, Sean?" He studied me for a long moment, then crossed to a sidebar and poured 2 glasses of amber liquid. Whiskey, probably older than me. He held one out. "You're going to want that." My stomach dropped, but I took the glass. He moved to the windows, staring out the bay, his back to me. "After last night," he said quietly, "I had my people dig deeper into your father's background, into the raid where he betrayed us. Sean, I found the recordings." He turned, and something in his expression made my breath catch. The communications from that night, audio logs we kept as evidence. He crossed to his desk, opened a laptop, and turned it toward me. A media file sat ready to play. "Listen." He clicked play. Static crackled. Then my father's voice filled the room, younger, urgent, speaking rapid Spanish into what sounded like a radio. Rivas esta en el almacén del norte. Tres hombres con él. Tienen las armas. Muévanse ahora. Rivas is in the north warehouse. 3 men with him. They have the weapons. Move now. My father's voice, giving away Sean's location, setting a trap. I felt the blood drain from my face. That doesn't. Sean unbuttoned his shirt with sharp, angry movements, pulling it open to reveal his chest. A scar ran from his left shoulder down across his ribs, thick, jagged, the kind left by a bullet that tears rather than pierces cleanly. Your father put this there, he said, voice hard. Not directly. He was too smart to pull the trigger himself. But his information led the Cali Sicarios right to us. They opened fire before we even knew they were there. He stepped closer, and I saw the barely controlled fury in his eyes. 2 of my men died instantly. A third bled out before the ambulance came. I survived because I fell behind a steel container when the first shots hit. His jaw clenched. But I heard your father's voice on their radios, coordinating, confirming our position. No. The word came out broken. He wouldn't. He did. Sean grabbed a folder from his desk and threw it at my feet. Photographs spilled out, crime scene images, blood on concrete, bodies covered with sheets. This is what Miguel Kiesler's betrayal looked like. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think past the roaring in my ears. The raid happened in 2009. Sean continued, relentless. 3 months later, your family moved to Miami. New names, new documentation, new life. Witness protection quality cover-up. His eyes bored into mine. Want to guess who arranged it? I shook my head, but I already knew. My uncle, Rico Rivas. Sean's voice was bitter. He paid your father to betray me, then got him out of Mexico before my people could find him. It was a coup attempt. Rico wanted control of the family operations, and I was in his way. The room tilted. I gripped the desk to stay upright. So you see, Christy, Sean said softly, dangerously, you're not some innocent bystander who stumbled into my restaurant by accident. You're the daughter of the man who tried to have me killed. You're living the life your father bought with my men's blood. Tears burned my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. I didn't know. I was a child. You were 9, old enough to remember. He leaned against the desk, arms crossed. Did you never wonder why you left Mexico so suddenly? Why your father changed jobs, changed everything? I had wondered. Late at night, in the spaces between childhood and understanding, I'd sense the secrets. But I'd been too young, too trusting, too loved to believe my father was capable of murder. Why tell me this now? My voice cracked. Why not just kill you? Sean's laugh was hollow. Believe me, I considered it. Would have been cleaner, simpler. His eyes met mine. But then you saved my life last night, and I realized I need to know the truth more than I need revenge. What truth? Whether your father acted alone, or whether you're part of whatever game Rico is still playing. He moved closer, and I smelled ocean salt and whiskey. Whether you knew who I was before you walked into my restaurant. Whether any of this, he gestured between us, is real, or just another Kiesler betrayal waiting to happen. It's real, I whispered. I didn't know. Any of it. Prove it. Ow. His hand caught my chin, tilting my face up to his. Help me find out why your father really betrayed me. Help me prove Rico was behind it. His thumb brushed my cheekbone. Or walk away now, and spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder, wondering when I'll stop believing you. It wasn't a choice. It was a trap dressed as salvation. But as I stared into his dark eyes, I realized I'd already fallen in. I'll help you, I said. His smile was sharp and sad. Then welcome to the family business, Christy Kiesler. The same business that had killed my father. It might kill me too. Pack a bag, Sean said, his tone brooking no argument. You're staying here until this is resolved. I stared at him across the study, still reeling from the revelations about my father. What? No. I have Eli. I have work. Eli will be protected. I'm putting a security detail on him. Sean moved to his desk, already typing on his phone. As for work, you don't work at the Mariner anymore. You work for me. And right now, that means staying where I can see you. This is insane. This is survival. He looked up, and the intensity in his gaze stopped my protest cold. Rico knows you exist now. After last night's ambush, he'll be looking for leverage against me. You and your brother just became targets. The words settled over me like ice water. Then let me go home. Let me take Eli and leave Miami. And go where? Sean's laugh was harsh. You think you can hide from my family? From Rico's people? He crossed to me in 3 strides, gripping my shoulders. The only safe place for you right now is here, with me. His hands were warm through my shirt, his face inches from mine. I don't need your protection, I said, but even I heard how hollow it sounded. Yes, he said softly, you do. The guest room he put me in was larger than my entire apartment. King bed with silk sheets, en-suite bathroom with a soaking tub, a balcony overlooking the bay. A prison designed by an interior decorator. My bag arrived within the hour, brought by one of Sean's men along with several shopping bags I hadn't requested. I opened them to find clothes in my size, designer jeans, silk blouses, dresses that probably cost more than my monthly rent. A note in Sean's handwriting. You'll need these for the meetings ahead. I want to throw them off the balcony. Instead, I hung them in the walk-in closet next to the 2 items I brought from home, hating how right they looked there. Dinner was served at 8 in a dining room that could seat 20 but held only 2 place settings, one at the head of the table, one to its right. Sean appeared in dark slacks and a crisp white shirt, looking every inch the billionaire host. I don't usually eat this formally, he said, noting my expression as I took my seat. But I thought you might appreciate the normalcy. Nothing about this is normal. No, he agreed, pouring wine into my glass. But it's the best I can offer. We ate in tense silence, but I felt his eyes on me constantly, watching, cataloging, analyzing, like I was a puzzle he couldn't solve. Your brother called while you were settling in, Sean said finally. I spoke with him. My fork clattered against the plate. You what? Relax. I told him you were helping me with an extended business project, that you'd be staying at a company property for the next few weeks. Sean's expression was maddeningly calm. He seemed satisfied. You had no right. I had every right. He's under my protection now, too. Sean leaned back, swirling his wine. Which reminds me, no phone calls unless I approve them first. No leaving the property without security. No contact with anyone from your old life. Each rule felt like a chain wrapping tighter. So I'm your prisoner. You're my responsibility. His eyes met mine. There's a difference. Is there? Something dark flickered across his face. Ask me that again in a few weeks. The days blurred together. I woke to breakfast waiting on my balcony. Fresh fruit, strong coffee, pastries I couldn't help but eat. Sean was always gone by the time I emerged, but evidence of him was everywhere. A book left on my nightstand that I'd mentioned wanting to read, a new laptop appearing on the desk with files for translation. Flowers were placed daily in the crystal vase by the window. Gifts that felt like surveillance. Generosity that tasted like control. He returned each evening, and we fell into a strange rhythm. Dinner together, sometimes in silence, sometimes with conversation that danced around everything important. He told me about the shipping business, about negotiations and trade routes. I told him about Eli, about my mother's family in Veracruz, about the life I'd lost when my parents died. We talked around my father, around the betrayal, around the growing tension that crackled between us like electricity before a storm. One night, I found him in his study at 2 a.m., whiskey in hand, staring at the photograph of him and my father. "Can't sleep?" I asked from the doorway. He looked up, unsurprised. "Never could. Not after the raid. I should have left. Should have gone back to my gilded cage and pretended I didn't see the loneliness carved into his features. Instead, I crossed to him. Tell me about him. About who my father was before." Sean was quiet for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. Then, he was brilliant, funny, loyal, or so I thought. His voice roughened. He taught me how to read people, how to spot a lie. Ironic, given how well he lied to me. Maybe he didn't have a choice. Everyone has a choice, Christy. Sean's eyes found mine, dark and haunted. He chose Rico's money over our friendship, over my life. And what are you choosing now? Keeping me here, controlling everything I do. I'm choosing not to lose again. He stood abruptly, crowding into my space. Do you understand what it was like? Trusting someone completely, only to have them put a bullet in your chest. His hand caught mine, pressing my palm against the scar beneath his shirt. I felt his heartbeat, rapid and strong beneath the damaged tissue. "I can't let you go," he said, voice raw. "If I do, I'll lose everything again. The truth about your father, about Rico, about—" He broke off, jaw clenched. "About what?" His other hand cupped my face, thumb tracing my cheekbone. "About whether you're the biggest mistake I've ever made, or the only real thing in my life right now." My breath caught. We were too close, his touch too intimate, the air too thin. "Sean, I know." He released me abruptly, stepping back. "I know this is wrong. I know I'm keeping you here against your will, manipulating you with protection and gifts and proximity." His laugh was bitter. "I'm turning into the monster you think I am. I don't. Don't lie." His eyes bored into mine. "You're terrified of me, and you should be. Because I'm not letting you go, Christy. Not until I know the truth. Maybe not even then." He walked out, leaving me alone in his study with the scent of his cologne and the terrible realization that I wasn't just afraid of him. I was afraid of how much I wanted to stay. I couldn't sleep. Again. 3 weeks in Sean's mansion, and insomnia had become my constant companion, along with questions that multiplied in the dark. Questions about my father, about Rico, about why Sean's obsession with me felt less like hatred and more like desperation. At 2 a.m., I gave up and padded barefoot down the hall to Sean's study. He was in Caracas on business, the house empty except for security posted outside. For the first time since I'd arrived, I was alone with his secrets. The study door was unlocked, arrogant or trusting, I couldn't tell which. I slipped inside, closing it softly behind me. Moonlight spilled through the French doors, illuminating the desk where Sean had shown me my father's betrayal. I'd replayed that audio recording 100 times in my head, searching for something I'd missed. Some explanation that would make sense of the father I'd loved and the traitor Sean had known. The filing cabinet in the corner was locked, but the key was in the desk drawer. Either sloppiness or a test. I hesitated only a moment before opening it. Inside were files dating back decades. Shipping manifests, financial records, surveillance photos. And at the very back, a box labeled Veracruz, 2009. My hands trembled as I opened it. Photographs of the raid. Reports in Spanish detailing the aftermath. And, at the bottom, a small digital recorder with a strip of tape across it. M. Kiesler, final transmission. My father's voice. I pressed play with shaking fingers. Static crackled. Then my father's voice filled the quiet study. Not urgent this time, but tired. Defeated. If anyone finds this, you need to know the truth. Rico Rivas approached me 6 months ago. Said he had proof Sean's mother, Katerina, was planning to restructure the family operations. Cut Rico out completely. He wanted me to help him move against Sean before Katerina could act. A pause. My father's breathing was ragged. I refused, but Rico said if I didn't help, he'd kill Katerina himself and frame Sean for it. Make it look like a power grab. He showed me the plan. It was detailed, thorough. He would have succeeded. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely hear the rest. So I made a deal. I'd give Rico the raid information, feed him Sean's location, if he promised to leave Katerina alone. I thought I could warn Sean before it happened. Get him out in time. But I was too late. His voice cracked. I never wanted Sean hurt. He was like a son to me. But I couldn't let Rico kill his mother. So I became the traitor instead. I let Sean hate me so he'd never know the truth. That his own uncle was willing to murder Katerina to take power. Another pause, longer this time. Rico's hunting me now. He knows I recorded everything. The conversations, the plans, the proof of his coup. I'm getting Christy and Eli out tonight. If I don't survive, this recording is their insurance. Their proof. Static. Then silence. I sat frozen, tears streaming down my face. My father hadn't betrayed Sean for money. He'd betrayed him to save Sean's mother. And Rico had killed him for it. The study door opened. I spun to find Sean standing in the doorway, still in his travel clothes, his expression dark and dangerous. What are you doing in here? My voice wouldn't work. I held up the recorder with trembling hands. His eyes went to it, then to my face. Where did you get that? The files. From 2009. I could barely breathe. You need to hear it. I don't need to hear anything. Yes, you do. I hit play. My father's voice filled the room again, confessing everything. I watched Sean's face as he listened. Watched the anger shift to confusion. Confusion to disbelief. Disbelief to something that looked like grief. When it ended, he stood motionless in the doorway, his jaw clenched so tight I could see the muscle jumping. You've been playing me, he said finally, his voice raw. This whole time. No. I stood, stepping toward him. I didn't know about this until 5 minutes ago. I swear. Your father was a liar. My father was trying to protect your mother. The words burst out of me, sharp and desperate. He knew Rico would kill her. He knew you'd be framed. So he made himself the villain to save your family. Sean's hands clenched into fists. That's not, he can't. Listen to it again. I thrust the recorder toward him. He died trying to stop your uncle. And you've been hunting the wrong ghost for 15 years. Something in him broke. I saw it happen. The carefully constructed wall shattering. The rage and grief he'd carried for so long crumbling into raw, devastating loss. He saved my mother, Sean whispered, and I wanted him dead for it. You didn't know. I should have known. His voice cracked. I should have questioned it. Should have. He turned away, one hand braced against the doorframe. Christ, what have I done? I moved to him without thinking, my hand finding his shoulder. He flinched at the contact, but didn't pull away. You did what you thought was right. What anyone would have done. I blamed an innocent man. I blamed his daughter. He looked at me then, and I saw anguish in his dark eyes. I've been punishing you for a crime he didn't commit. Keeping you here, controlling you, when you were the only family he died protecting. I finished softly. The truth hung between us, rewriting everything. Sean had lost his father figure to a lie. I'd lost my father to the truth. Enrico Rivas had orchestrated all of it. Where's your mother now? I asked quietly. Sean's jaw tightened. She died 2 years ago. Cancer. His eyes met mine. She never knew what your father did for her. What he sacrificed. We stood in the moonlit study, two people bound by secrets and blood, and the ghost of a man who'd loved us both enough to destroy himself. I'm sorry, Sean said finally, for everything, for keeping you here, for blaming you for. I pressed my fingers to his lips, stopping the words. Find Rico, I whispered. Finish what my father started. Sean's hand covered mine, holding it against his mouth for a heartbeat before lowering it. We'll find him together, he said. And in that moment, we stopped being captor and captive. We became something far more dangerous, allies bound by vengeance and grief. And maybe, terrifyingly, something more. The call came 3 days later. Sean's phone rang during breakfast, a number he didn't recognize. He answered on speaker, his eyes already hardening. Sabrino. Rico's voice slithered through the line, smooth and mocking. Nephew, I hear you've been asking questions about old history, digging up graves that should stay buried. Sean's knuckles went white around his coffee cup. Where are you? Close enough. Rico laughed, the sound like broken glass. Close enough to know you've got Miguel's little girl living in your house. Tell me, does she know you're the reason her papi died? Or have you been playing the hero? My blood turned to ice. Leave her out of this, Sean said, his voice lethal calm. But she's already in it, isn't she? Just like her father was. A pause. Pier 19. Midnight. Come alone, bring the girl, and maybe we can resolve this family business without more bloodshed. Don't come, and I'll send pieces of your people back to you until you do. The line went dead. Sean stared at the phone, his expression carved from stone. Then he looked at me. You're not going. Like hell I'm not. I stood, my chair scraping against marble. He killed my father. He tried to kill you. This ends tonight. Christy, you don't get to protect me from this, Sean. My voice shook but held firm. My father died to save your mother. The least I can do is help you finish what he started. Something shifted in his expression, pride mixing with fear. He'll try to use you against me. Then don't let him. Pier 19 was abandoned, condemned after a fire 3 years ago. The burned-out warehouse loomed against the midnight sky, its skeleton of steel beams casting twisted shadows across cracked concrete. Sean parked a block away, then turned to me in the darkness of the car. If this goes wrong, he said quietly, if Rico gets the upper hand, you run. Don't look back. Don't try to help. Just run. Sean. His hand cupped my face, thumb brushing my cheekbone in a gesture that had become achingly familiar. Promise me. I covered his hand with mine. Only if you promise not to get yourself killed. Deal. His eyes searched mine for a long moment. Then he leaned in and kissed me, fierce and desperate and full of everything we hadn't said. When he pulled back, his forehead rested against mine. After this is over, he whispered, we're going to have a long conversation about what the hell we're doing. Looking forward to it. We got out of the car. Sean's men were already in position, shadows stationed around the perimeter, invisible but present. He'd promised to come alone, but he wasn't stupid. Neither was Rico. The warehouse interior was cavernous and dark, lit only by moonlight streaming through holes in the collapsed roof. Our footsteps echoed on concrete as we moved deeper inside. That's far enough. Rico's voice came from the shadows ahead. Lights blazed to life, industrial floods that turned night into blinding day. I shielded my eyes, blinking away spots. Rico stood on the second-floor catwalk, flanked by 6 armed men. He was older than in the photographs I'd seen, mid-50s, gray-haired, wearing an expensive suit that looked absurd in the burned-out wreckage. But his smile was pure predator. Sabrino, he called down, and the famous Christy Kiesler, Miguel's daughter. You look just like your mother, Mija. Rage flared hot in my chest. You killed my parents. I eliminated a problem. Rico shrugged. Your father got greedy, Started making copies of files that didn't belong to him. Couldn't let that stand. He was protecting Katerina, Sean said, his voice carrying across the warehouse. From you. We found the recording. Rico's smile faltered. What recording? The one where Miguel documented everything. Your coup attempt, your plan to kill my mother. All of it. Sean pulled out his phone, held it up. I've got copies with my lawyers, my accountant, 3 different news organizations. If anything happens to me, it all goes public. You're bluffing. Try me. The standoff stretched tight as a wire. Rico's men shifted nervously, guns trained on us. Sean stood perfectly still, a coiled spring waiting to snap. Then Rico laughed, genuinely laughed. You always were your mother's son. Stubborn, self-righteous. His expression hardened. But you're forgetting something, Sabrino. I don't need you alive. I just need you gone. He raised his hand to signal his men. Everything happened at once. Gunfire exploded from the shadows. Sean's people opening up on Rico's men. I hit the ground as Sean tackled me behind a concrete pillar, his body covering mine as bullets ricocheted off steel and stone. Stay down, he shouted over the chaos. But I saw Rico running for the back exit, escaping while his men provided cover. He's getting away. Sean looked, cursed, then grabbed my face. Stay here. I mean it, Christy. He was gone before I could argue, sprinting after his uncle through the maze of wreckage. I should have listened. Should have stayed safe while Sean's men finished the fight. Instead, I ran after him. I found them on the pier behind the warehouse, 2 silhouettes struggling at the edge of the water. Rico had a gun. Sean had his hands locked around his uncle's wrist, forcing the barrel away. Everything I did, Rico snarled, I did for this family. Your mother was going to destroy us with her weakness. My mother, Sean growled, was twice the leader you'll ever be. The gun went off, deafening in the night air. Both men froze. Then Rico stumbled backward, blood blooming across his white shirt. The gun clattered to the pier. He looked down at the wound, then up at Sean with something like surprise. You actually shot me. No, I said quietly, stepping out of the shadows with Sean's backup piece in my trembling hands. I did. Both men stared at me. Rico's laugh was wet, bubbling. Miguel's daughter. He'd be so proud. My father, I said, tears streaming down my face, died protecting the people he loved. You died because you couldn't. Rico's legs gave out. He sat down hard on the pier, hand pressed to the wound. Doesn't matter. You kill me, the family falls apart. Sean's enemies will tear him to pieces. No, Sean said, moving to my side, taking the gun gently from my shaking hands. They won't. Because unlike you, I don't lead through fear. I lead through loyalty. He looked down at his uncle with something that might have been pity, something you never understood. Rico coughed, blood on his lips. This isn't over. Yes, Sean said quietly. It is. We stood there as the life drained out of Rico Rivas, as sirens wailed in the distance, as the ghost that had haunted both our families finally laid itself to rest. When it was over, when Sean's people had secured the scene and the police, the ones Sean owned, had been called, he turned to me. You killed him. I saved you. My voice shook. There's a difference. His hand found mine, fingers lacing together. Yeah, there is. We stood at the edge of the pier, covered in blood and smoke and the weight of everything we'd survived. What happens now? I asked. Sean looked at me, really looked, and I saw the walls he'd built around himself finally come down. Now, he said, we stop running from ghosts. We stop punishing ourselves for our father's sins. He stepped closer, his free hand cupping my face. We choose something different. What's that? Each other. He kissed me then, Not desperate this time, but certain. A promise made in blood and fire. When we broke apart, dawn was breaking over the Miami skyline, painting everything golden new. I should probably call Eli, I said. Explain why I've been gone so long. Tell him the truth. Sean's thumb brushed my cheekbone. That you've been helping me lay some ghosts to rest. And after that, his smile was crooked, genuine. After that, Christy Kiesler, we figure out what the hell we are. Together. I leaned into him, exhausted and alive and terrified and hopeful all at once. Sounds dangerous. Everything worth having is. 3 months later, I stood in Sean's study, our study now, sorting through the last of my father's files. We'd found proof of everything. Rico's coup, the threats against Katerina, my father's desperate gambit to save her. We'd cleared Miguel Kiesler's name within the family, told the truth about his sacrifice. It didn't bring him back, but it gave him the honor he deserved. The door opened, and Sean walked in, Eli trailing behind him. My brother had taken to visiting on weekends, slowly accepting that his sister had fallen in love with a man whose world was nothing like the safe, normal life I tried to give him. Ready? Sean asked. I looked at the photograph on the desk, my father and Sean, arms around each other, smiling before everything went wrong. Yeah, I said, standing. I'm ready. Sean's hand found the small of my back as we walked out together, Eli chattering about the boat Sean was teaching him to sail. We'd been forged in betrayal and blood, Sean and I, built from the ruins of our father's choices. But what we'd become, partners, lovers, allies, that was ours alone. And we protected the way my father had protected the people he loved, with everything we had.
Thank you for watching the story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazy and intriguing as you can ever imagine. So, do check it out.